You can get good with acrylics really fast, but you need to do it the right way. Just gonna put these down. It's pretty common advice too.
I've been painting with acrylics for over 15 years, and honestly, that advice couldn't be more wrong. So, in this video, I'm gonna share with you the 5 things that I did that made acrylic painting really easy.
The first thing to do, and nobody really tells you this, is to just have a play around with the paint.
Yin, you won't believe how many acrylic paintings I've seen that just aren't good, but could be fixed with one really simple exercise.
Try a couple of brushes, try thick marks, try thin marks, get a feel for how the paint works, then add a little bit of water, just a tiny.
Oil paints don't really need thinning out as much, but acrylics aren't like that. You can make mistakes with that too. You can go too thin.
Some acrylic paints are very thin already, some are quite thick, like these heavy body ones, and some are sort of in between. This is gesso, so it doesn't really matter which brand you use, but the gesso helps the paint stick to the canvas. The main problem with using water as a medium is that as you add more water to the paint, the more transparent, the more see-through that paint becomes.
A wet palette is one of the easiest ways to prolong the drying time of your paints, and it does what it says on the tin. It's a palette that keeps your paints wet.
Okay? I use this a lot for portraits because when you're painting fur or details, you don't really want those paints to be drying.
And we're not constantly having to add water to our brush, because if you do that, what tends to happen is that paint becomes far too transparent.
Which means you don't have to use those glazing mediums that I talked about earlier if you don't want to. It just adds that time.
Another thing that you can do is use glazing. And what glazing is it's just adding a very thin, transparent layer of paint over the top. So you can see in this line painting that I've done how those glazes just add a little bit of color and a little bit of depth to the painting. So it means that we can control the depth and the tone of the painting to create something that's really detailed and that feels like you have a lot of control over the painting as well.
We can also use acrylics to be very thin. We don't have to keep them thick and textured, and you can paint very thin layers. It's a bit like drawing with paint as opposed to applying very thick layers. So we want that paint to be very thin, but we don't want it to be transparent.
So we want to use those mediums to ensure that we maintain some of the opacity of the paint, but we get that detail. If we thin it down but if we use a medium, we can build up thin, opaque layers like you can see here, and we can still paint those details without losing the opacity of the paint. So we can create depth, we can create detail, and we can create subtlety. This allows us to work in different ways and to add a lot of balance. Another important thing to do is to experiment with different brushes. What you'll find with acrylic paints is that when you add water to them, that's it. So because of that, you can use a whole host of different types of brushes. You can use hog hairs like I'm using now. You can use solids.
Experimenting with lots of different brushes.
So experimenting with lots of different brushes can really help you get a feel for paint work and what kind of effect you're gonna. The last thing that I want to share with you is layering. And this is actually super important because when you paint with acrylics, you tend to build up a lot of those layers. So we don't mix all of the colors on the palette and then try to put them all on at once. We build up those slowly and gradually. So you're painting lighter colors over dark colors and then darker colors over lighter colors, and you're just building up those layers gradually to achieve the kind of finish that you want.
So painting with layers is something that's really important with acrylics and something that you're going to want to learn to embrace. Once you start painting with layers,
you don't need to try and get all of the details in with one brush stroke. You can build up lots of little details over many brush strokes. If you've enjoyed this video and you found these tips helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to learn even more about painting and drawing,
an oil painting-like effects and really highly detailed, highly rendered painting with acrylics, you need to build up in layers.
One, doesn't require any extra materials, and 2, I believe actually results in a much better finish to the painting. Oil paints can just be blended together wet into wet, and oil paints are a lot more opaque than acrylic colors, so they cover the canvas a lot more easily. And honestly, it just looks a little bit amateurish. But the solution to that is building up in layers. We don't need to rush either. We can be a lot slower and a lot more controlled than other people would have you believe when you're working with acrylics. It's okay to be slow. It's okay to be deliberate with what you're doing. We don't need to rush. We can use the drying process. All right, let's get this background in. We're using the purplish gray around the swan before we load up with the white to really make the feathers pop. We don't have to race. We can build up lots of layers of acrylics much faster than oil paints because they take so long to dry. And those layers are just going to add depth and variation and luminosity to the painting that you wouldn't be able to get without using layers. So if we start with a dark base and then add lighter layers of paint on top, we can give the illusion of depth. It looks like there are 3 different layers to the painting, which you can actually reach through and almost touch and feel. And that's especially good for But that's not the only way that we can layer. We can also add darker paint on top of lighter paint. But we can also use it to adjust the colors or create vibrant, luminous colors, which you wouldn't be able to do without using that layering technique. Both of those techniques can be used to create some really cool effects. And speaking of effects, we can actually use loads of different tools in the painting. We don't just have to use brushes. One example of these, palette knives.
Den en träffar korrigen sentams, do who say.
But we can also actually use these to add fine details. I use them for little strands of fur and also for a little bit more texture, more 3D blades of grass. I can get a much finer line with this than I can with a brush.
And because the paint dries so fast, any texture that we add with the palette knife, we can actually add paint layers over the top, and that can create even more cool effects.
Raphael's mastery wasn't just talent, it was a profound understanding of new techniques. We're uncovering options. The drawing stage was crucial. You can spot his hidden sketches, even beneath the first color layers. When Raphael moved to Rome, he left this masterpiece behind, unfinished. These visible layers aren't flaws, they're observations. His radiant style was built on a total mastery of new oil painting methods. Raphael is considered more complete than even Da Vinci or Michelangelo in some ways. His early, precise drawing stage was. The art world is increasingly obsessed with how these paintings were made, not just what they are. Understanding Raphael's methods elevates. By recreating and studying these techniques, we don't just see the artwork, we understand the artist's mind. The nature of perfection in art often lies in the invisible steps, the process. I invite you to explore this hidden journey with us. These initial sketches, often considered unartistic, were the true blueprints. Raphael viewed these not as art, but as vital tools for problem solving and refining composition. The changes in proportion are evident, suggesting joined cartoons for the final piece.
This poplar structure, secured by calcium casenet and dovetailed joints, was engineered for eternity.
The gesso, a precise blend of plaster of Paris and animal glue, creates the ideal radiant base.
Bringing these diverse findings together, the complete picture of Raphael's process finally emerges. Play that.
His holistic approach from initial concept through precise panel preparation is truly remarkable.
Absolutely. We've finally pieced together the intricate puzzle of Raphael's genius, revealing the complete artistic journey. Professor Thorne, observe. Our infrared reflectography is peeling back centuries of paint. We're seeing the underdrawing.
Remarkable. You can truly see the meticulousness here.
The faint dots suggest pouncing, a common transfer technique. Indeed.
And there, the architectural skeleton.
These aren't merely drawn, they appear to be incised melons.
Notice the chiaroscuro developing here. Raphael isn't just outlining.
He's defining. Beyond the drawing, our spectral analysis confirms the imprimatura.
That thin film of lead white and linseed oil.
Now, the synergy.
Then,
Now, observe the synergy. The transparent oil layers built upon the volumetric underdrawing to place from the hidden blueprint to the luminous oil.
we've traced his entire kit and thought process. It's a This changes everything, Anya. It's no longer just a painting, but a meticulously engineered masterpiece.
The alchemist's touch. Why did Raphael put glass powder in his paint? This sample clearly shows the unique
Raphael broke the rule. He disregarded the fat over lean tradition. His initial layers surprisingly contained powerful drying agents.
From drawing to depth, Raphael's two-step method. First, the main body of color, a corpo, then the luminous glaze.
The late career shift, how Raphael changed his formula for light and shadow. Notice the dramatic chiaroscuro on this later.
Sculpting with white, deciphering Raphael's signature highlight technique. These textile folds truly come alive with
the unoverlap, the clever reason Raphael built thick edges. We can clearly see the meticulous separation, adding sculptural depth.
This glass powder wasn't just a filler, Professor. It chemically accelerated the oil's polymerization, a hidden catalyst for rapid drying.
Burned twice. Raphael's genius wasn't just in his compositions, it was in his profound understanding of materials and daring technical innovation.
Sometimes a touch of burnt lake enhances that initial glow. Then a slightly darker outer layer reveals. Raphael perfected the use of semi-transparent glazes as a finishing touch for skin. These delicate layers, even transparent carbon black glazings for shade, subtly dim the overall brilliance. It's a legend. Raphael's final masterpiece is a symphony of layers, a blend of opaque and transparent colors. For hair, Raphael's approach was elegantly constrained, primarily using earth tones and ochre pigments. Art guides from Raphael's era frequently mention applying transparent glazes as a final step. Caps bristers. Raphael's mastery lies in his symphony of techniques. Careful underdrawing, layered. These final glazes are critical. They intensify the chiaroscuro, making the forms truly sing. It's the ultimate veil of color. Raphael rarely mixed purple directly. Instead, he layered transparent azurite over red lake, this optical trick. Even small details like the Madonna's veil are micro masterpieces. Precise glazes of ochre yellow Landscapes were often a final stage. Starting with a white primer, Raphael quickly built up these atmospheric backgrounds, grounding his divine figures. His signature style, transparent, bright, luminous, came from mastering a few materials. Layering them maximized their optical potential. Historical art guides from Raphael's era frequently advocated this glazing technique. It was a common workshop practice perfected by masters like him. Raphael's and the founding of materials transformed simple pigments into dazzling visual poetry.
15 seconds. That's the average time people spend with the Mona Lisa. But what happens after those 15 seconds? Is it the ever-changing nature?
It's all about how light and shadow play on the edges of her mouth, a masterpiece of subtle shading. The magic.
Mona Lisa is more than a portrait. She is a lesson in light and shadow and in the art of the sfumato.
Researchers use ultra-sophisticated X-ray technology to count the incredibly thin layers of glaze he meticulously stacked.
Are we even looking at the right person? Is she truly Lisa Gherardini, or merely an ideal image?
Can science strip away the layers, revealing the true identity of the Queen of the Louvre? Every brushstroke, every... Leonardo didn't just paint, he studied life. He was an engineer, an anatomist,
How did his extensive knowledge of the human body help him create such extraordinary vibrancy on a...
Here in Florence, where Da Vinci began his masterpiece, the city's vibrant, competitive spirit shaped him profoundly.
He envisioned armored tanks, flying machines, even self-propelled carts. But where did these brilliant inventions originate?
Before the Mona Lisa, Leonardo spent thousands of hours dissecting human bodies, understanding muscle, bone.
Leonardo said, "The painting shows life." But how did he create a pulsing heart beneath the skin?
The Mona Lisa was not finished overnight. Leonardo carried this work for 16 years.
To create that never-fixed smile, Leonardo mastered optics. He wrote hundreds of pages on light and vision.
Leonardo often left projects unfinished. He had dozens of incomplete works.
Vincent de Leeuwen once noted, Leonardo spent up to 2 decades perfecting a single painting. Think of the patience, the dedication.
20 years implies dozens, perhaps even hundreds of paint layers. But how thin were these layers, really?
To understand Leonardo's layering, we use cross-sectional microscopy. It allows us to dissect the painting.
Look closely at this strata. Each layer is unbelievably thin, often just a few micrometers.
Such painstaking application, layer upon layer, explains how a single painting could consume 20 years of his life.
We measure each layer's exact thickness, often revealing extraordinary consistency. This level of precision is astounding for his era.
Was this meticulous layering merely artistic pursuit or something more profound? Perhaps it was an experiment.
The relentless pursuit of such microscopic perfection points to more than aesthetic goals. It suggests a scientific...
Dr. Motin, the ultraviolet images show these dark blue spots on the Mona Lisa. What do they tell us about its history?
These deep blue areas...
Leonardo spent 16 years on the Mona Lisa. That suggests he changed his mind many times. Can science reveal what he...
What do these tiny cracks, this crackler, tell us about the stresses the paint layers have endured?
Cracklier is a...
This cracker is framing.
The painting was created on a thin poplar wood panel.
Yeah.
What has happened to that wood over time? The wood panel is, of course, susceptible...
Dr. Motin, you mentioned oil paint's transparency, but did Leonardo use the same paint thickness everywhere?
Not at all. Leonardo was a...
The art historian, though, suggests the Mona Lisa ended as a manifesto.
Is that real?
Often today. If Mona Lisa began as a portrait of a merchant's wife, why did it conclude with such an idealized, mysterious beauty?
The blues and reds Dr. Motin mentioned, do they still retain their original brilliance today?
X-ray fluorescence analysis allows us to identify the chemical...
The X-rays show faint lines, almost like ghosts of earlier positions.
We see several...
The X-rays reveal a canvas constantly in motion, a testament to 16 years of Da Vinci's evolving vision.
Using advanced imaging, we can simulate Da Vinci's initial steps.
He didn't sketch que tac on récourt les freuses si on ne le temps fait pas.
The invisibility of his brushstrokes suggests extremely fine tools.
Perhaps even the use of...
Paint this angel with a touch of divine grace, Leonardo. Observe the light.
What exactly was that 3D model used to test?
Patience. We assembled it piece by piece, exactly as Da Vinci's sketches implied. We applied compression force, mimicking weight.
So what was so special about Leonardo's engineering principles for this bridge?
His design relies entirely on the... Although never built, does Leonardo's design offer insights into modern bridge engineering?
Absolutely. How did you get it?
How does the detailed bridge connect to painting the Mona Lisa?
It's about systemic thinking, calculating force of the bridge.
Filtration.
Why would such a massive project only have 2 sketches and 4 measurements noted backward in a small notebook?
Ultimately, the Ottoman Sultan rejected this ambitious project.
What happened after that setback, and did it affect Leonardo's psyche as he...
Florence commissioned Leonardo and Michelangelo to paint 2 large murals. Leonardo. So why did Leonardo accept the commission to paint Lisa Gherardini, the wife of a cloth merchant?
The context was simple.
That's right. After the wall painting failure, Leonardo poured all his scientific energy into the Mona Lisa. What was his biggest experiment? We know the Mona Lisa began around 1503. How did Leonardo work with Lisa Gherardini as his Leonardo chose to paint on a small poplar panel, not canvas. Why that specific material?
The wood panel offered that.
What confidence did the bridge's fundamental principles give Leonardo when he started the Mona Lisa?
That success.
Leonardo never had a fixed home. His career was a series of moves seeking patronage. After technical failures and fierce rivalry, was the Mona Lisa Leonardo's personal triumph, where he finally mastered art and science?
Many paintings attributed to Leonardo were actually workshop creations.
What tasks did he typically assign to his apprentices?
Leonardo. Conservators like Cinzia Pasquali meticulously scrape away yellowed varnish.
Experts chemically analyze the varnish and underlying paint. What about the pigments and binders in Bacchus? Raise doubts. The goal isn't just cleaning, it's attribution. What specific techniques distinguish Da Vinci's brushwork from his... Leonardo often used a distinctive dark ground layer. Does Bacchus share this same type of foundation? At times. Leonardo meticulously studied gesture and anatomy. Does Bacchus's posture and musculature reflect? If Bacchus is a workshop piece, how did the students attempt to imitate Da Vinci's sfumato?
Leonardo constantly. Leonardo moved constantly, often leaving unfinished works to his students. Could Bacchus be a...
Now were 30 ultra-thin, transparent paint layers applied to create the sfumato effect, that subtle haze on Mona Lisa's face.
Why was linseed or walnut oil superior to egg yolk tempera for Leonardo? The transparency of oil...
Leonardo often started on a dark ground. Why? Beginning on a dark gown allowed the transparent oil layers. How did Leonardo make these paint layers blend so perfectly, leaving no trace of brushstrokes? Experts discuss. Oil helps create superior light and shadow. What did Leonardo use chiaroscuro to highlight in the Mona Lisa?
Fluorosilphate.
If Bacchus lacks such perfectly thin paint layers, how much more refined is the Mona Lisa? Leonardo called this the science of painting. How did that vision shape him as an artist and scientist? All these secrets, 30 thin layers, oil's transparency, the dark ground.
Sfumato blurs the lines, but what anatomical knowledge brings the Mona Lisa's smile so vividly to life?
Leonardo's deep anatomical study allowed him to meticulously depict the precise contraction of facial muscles.
His notebooks reveal an almost obsessive study of facial anatomy, far beyond what other artists of his time explored.
The blurring effect of sfumato isn't just aesthetic. It mirrors.
And how does light play into this anatomical understanding?
How does it interact with those nuanced contours created by the muscles? His anatomical
precision track.
This precision, combined with sfumato, gives the illusion of movement, a smile that subtly changes as you...
So this convergence of artistic technique and scientific anatomical knowledge truly brought her to life on canvas.
Her mystery.
Her mystery isn't an accident. It's the masterful outcome of his science perfected.
This parts you. How to paint the see-throughness of air. Leonardo developed atmospheric perspective. What scientific principles did he use?
The air itself acts as a filter. Tiny particles scatter light, making things...
Atmospheric perspective demands the use of blue and opaque white hues. What pigments did Leonardo blend to create that blue haze?
Our analysis shows a sophisticated blend of lapis lazuli, azurite, and lead white, applied in incredible...
So atmospheric perspective is essentially sfumato applied to a landscape. What was the shared objective of these two techniques?
Both techniques aim to create a deliberate blur, a sense of unsureness. This forces the viewer to use their imagination to decode.
Leonardo called optics perspectiva. What did he write in his notebooks about light, color, and shadow?
He meticulously detailed his experiments with the camera obscura, understanding how light traveled.
That unique bonza blue and hazy effect, is it enough to confirm Leonardo as the author of Bacchus now? Experts are using chemical analysis to... Both Bacchus and Mona Lisa utilize atmospheric perspective. What similarities in technique have these restorations revealed? If Bacchus is from Leonardo's workshop, how did he teach his students to depict the human body and gesture? Van Houten studies
Walter, take his words of wood.
Walter, you've said Leonardo created interactive painting. What does that mean for the viewer's experience?
Leonardo transformed the truths.
Deleuvin's findings reveal the historians' and scientists' verdict. Bacchus is now recognized as a masterpiece. The restoration of Bacchus proved that modern science helps us understand Da Vinci better. What is the next challenge for restorers?
Leonardo marketed himself as both an engineer and an artist, changing both fields profoundly. What legacy did he leave?
Cote has now created a digital version of the Mona Lisa, just as Leonardo saw her. The original colors reveal a stunning truth.
Digitally removing the yellowed varnish completely changes our perception of the Mona Lisa. Does this newfound vibrancy? In Cote's hyper-detailed scan, did he find any trace of the missing eyebrows or eyelashes? Indeed, superfine brush mark. We now see the ultra-thin, colorless glaze layer Leonardo used to lock in that iconic sfumato effect.
Isaacson suggested that simply cleaning the Mona Lisa could topple the French government. Why does a single artwork carry such immense power?
How close is Cote's digital restoration to the truth? What can technology never truly replicate?
From engineer of bridges, anatomist of muscle, to optical scientist of sfumato, Leonardo da Vinci's ultimate legacy. Now, with museums able to project this digital restoration, will visitors still crowd to see the... What were those three paintings?
History.
Art historians confirm they were the Mona Lisa, St. John the Baptist, and the Virgin. The end is of its end. Why did Leonardo choose to live in France with King Francis I in his final years? What did Leonardo do for King Francis I? Borgo explains he was a first painter, engineer,
Killing the three men. Leonardo lived at Château du Clos Lucé, near King Francis I. What did he draw in those final 3 years? Leonardo da Vinci passed away in 1519. What legacy did he leave for Francis I? Historians discuss the root left. After his death, who inherited his notebooks, holding all his great scientific knowledge? Cote's digital restoration has helped to revive the Mona Lisa. What is the ultimate message Cote wants to convey? The scientific discoveries about the Mona Lisa have revealed Leonardo's timeless mind. He was not just a great painter, he was the first to apply. The Mona Lisa's smile remains the world's greatest riddle, a scientific puzzle that still captivates.
Through Pascal Cote's multispectral scans, we pierce 500 years of yellowed varnish to uncover her original vibrancy.
Infrared and X-ray reveal Leonardo's remarkable freedom, his 16 years of changes, unlike any contemporary artist.
The Mona Lisa stands as physical proof. When science and art unite, the result is breathtaking, lifelike perfection.
Anatomy provided the muscle knowledge to craft her most delicate expression, the ephemeral quality of her smile.
Optics, his perspectiva, manipulated our central and peripheral vision, creating the smoky sfumato that makes her smile appear and vanish.
Leonardo da Vinci, the first to truly apply science to capture movement, emotion, and life in art.
By about 1500, Raphael was an apprentice to the big gun of Umbrian painting, Pietro Pellino. We soaked up everything. The big move came the Big 15 in 1504, when Raphael headed to Florence, the buzzing heart of the Renaissance. His Florentine years saw him create those absolutely stunning Madonnas and portraits. He took the best of his influences, and this is where he gave us the School of Athens in the Stanza della Segnatura. It's a true masterpiece, mate, a mind-blowing assembly of all the great legends. Raphael's star just kept rising in Rome. He became the chief architect of St. Peter's Basilica. Sadly, on April 6th, 1520, his 37th birthday, Raphael passed away. But his legacy... Raphael wasn't given a small task. He was handed a monumental project. He was commissioned to decorate several rooms in the papal apartments. And this absolutely stole the thunder of all the other top dog artists in Italy. Suddenly, this newcomer was the talk of Rome. Raphael, with his boundless energy and fresh perspective, immediately dove into the work. His innovative approach him out. Raphael's work a crucial piece in Julius II's colossal plan. I require something profoundly different for these chambers.
My design will speak of Rome's renewed glory, Your Holiness.
Raphael received a special statuto, a free pass to work with any master.
See, Raffaello, the light must flow softly here. Use the finest sable for the highlights. Look here, Raffaello.
The gold must shimmer just so. See how the grotesque comes alive.
And the Vatican was truly transformed. A Roman renewal for the ages.
We have to move faster if we want to reach the extraction point before dark. The foliage gets aggressive at night.
I know. We're close.
Julius II, a formidable figure, wouldn't simply hand over such a crucial commission without intense scrutiny.
Raphael, with his Bramante-inspired architectural sensibility, understood how to create space that enhanced meaning. And so, the decision was made.
Pope Julius II entrusted Raphael.
So Julius needed to find an artist who wouldn't paint as flash as Pinturicchio, who wouldn't give an image of overdone decoration.
Raphael's job was to paint 4 frescoes that would illustrate acquired wisdom, the stuff you learn at Renaissance University.
Julius II was framed by an image of law, civil law with Justinian, and canon law with Gregory IX.
Then you see the bloody, stunning image of the two natures of the church. Raphael's work in the Stanza della Segnatura demonstrated his unparalleled genius for integrating.
The Stanza della Segnatura stands as a testament to Raphaeli mastery.
Everything that people come to see today was an investment made 500 years ago by a bloke who you could argue,
you've got an upper section anchored by Plato and Aristotle, with Plato pointing upwards for abstract thought and Aristotle pointing downwards for thought. The production of the Raphael tapestries for the Sistine Chapel is, I reckon, a wonderful case of God's art.
The Sistine Chapel has Perugino, whose former teacher Ghirlandaio, Luca Signorelli and Botticelli are already on the lower level.
And then above it, of course, Michelangelo, his arch rival, 8 years his senior, had changed the history of art on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Punters. You've got an upper section anchored by Plato and Aristotle, with Plato pointing upwards for abstract thought, and So Raphael made the tapestries that would celebrate St. Peter and St. Paul, a very fitting subject matter for the site where they choose.
Unfortunately, Raphael never lived to see them all in place. They didn't arrive until after he kicked the bucket in 1520.
But his talent, his ability to merge the different arts in a unique way, and his extraordinary ability to work tirelessly I reckon there are 3 things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who loved harmony and beauty. Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience.
This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke.
In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson.
Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who'd clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are 3 things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering.
The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty.
Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation,
but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who'd clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are 3 things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty.
Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation,
but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience.
In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty, not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony, not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty, not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty, putting things together in a way that caused pleasure.
Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty.
The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience.
In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and
Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering.
The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty.
Not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who'd clearly made a massive impact in his short life. I reckon there are three things about Raphael that, 500 years later, are worth rediscovering. Yes. The first thing is the harmony and the peacefulness in his paintings. He really was an artist who looked for harmony and beauty, not an art that was meant to trouble you or to create excessive sensation, but an art that was meant to move you through its elegance and beauty. The second thing about Raphael, which is a very important quality for today, is patience. This wasn't an artist who rushed his vision, but one who built it with deliberate care, stroke by painstaking stroke. In our fast-paced world, Raphael's dedication to a patient, meticulous process offers a timeless lesson. Raphael's funeral was attended by hundreds, a true homage for a bloke who'd clearly made a massive impact in his short life.
15 seconds. That's the average time people spend with the Mona Lisa. But what happens after those 15 seconds? Is it the ever-changing nature?
It's all about how light and shadow play on the edges of her mouth, a masterpiece of subtle shading. The magic...
Mona Lisa is more than a portrait. She is a lesson in light and shadow and in the art of the sfumato.
Researchers use ultra-sophisticated X-ray technology to count the incredibly thin layers of glaze he meticulously stacked.
Are we even looking at the right person? Is she truly Lisa Gherardini, or merely an ideal image?
Can science strip away the layers, revealing the true identity of the Queen of the Louvre? Every brushstroke, every...
Leonardo didn't just paint, he studied life. He was an engineer, an anatomist,
How did his extensive knowledge of the human body help him create such extraordinary vibrancy on a...
Here in Florence, where Da Vinci began his masterpiece, the city's vibrant, competitive spirit shaped him profoundly.
He envisioned armored tanks, flying machines, even self-propelled carts. But where did these brilliant inventions originate?
Before the Mona Lisa, Leonardo spent thousands of hours dissecting human bodies, understanding muscle, bone.
Leonardo said, "The painting shows life." But how did he create a pulsing heart beneath the skin?
The Mona Lisa was not finished overnight. Leonardo carried this work for 16 years.
To create that never-fixed smile, Leonardo mastered optics. He wrote hundreds of pages on light and vision.
Leonardo often left projects unfinished. He had dozens of incomplete works.
Vincent de Leeuwen once noted, Leonardo spent up to 2 decades perfecting a single painting. Think of the patience, the dedication. 20 years implies dozens, perhaps even hundreds of paint layers. But how thin were these layers, really?
To understand Leonardo's layering, we use cross-sectional microscopy. It allows us to dissect the painting.
Look closely at this strata. Each layer is unbelievably thin, often just a few micrometers.
Such painstaking application, layer upon layer, explains how a single painting could consume 20 years of his life.
We measure each layer's exact thickness, often revealing extraordinary consistency. This level of precision is astounding for his era.
Was this meticulous layering merely artistic pursuit or something more profound? Perhaps it was an experiment.
The relentless pursuit of such microscopic perfection points to more than aesthetic goals. It suggests a scientific...
Dr. Motin, the ultraviolet images show these dark blue spots on the Mona Lisa. What do they tell us about its history?
These deep blue areas
in laser place.
Leonardo spent 16 years on the Mona Lisa. That suggests he changed his mind many times. Can science reveal what he...
What are these tiny cracks, this crackler? Tell us about the stresses the paint layers have endured.
Cracklier is a...
This crackle is framing.
The painting was created on a thin poplar wood panel.
Yeah.
What has happened to that wood over time? The wood panel is, of course, susceptible.
Dr. Motin, you mentioned oil paint's transparency, but did Leonardo use the same paint thickness everywhere?
Not at all. Leonardo was a...
The art historian, though, suggests the Mona Lisa ended as a manifesto.
Is that really?
Often today.
If Mona Lisa began as a portrait of a merchant's wife, why did it conclude with such an idealized, mysterious beauty?
The blues and reds Dr. Motin mentioned, do they still retain their original brilliance today?
X-ray fluorescence analysis allows us to identify the chemical...
The X-rays show faint lines, almost like ghosts of earlier positions.
We see several... The X-rays reveal a canvas constantly in motion, a testament to 16 years of Da Vinci's evolving vision.
Using advanced imaging, we can simulate Da Vinci's initial steps.
He didn't sketch le temps qu'on les creuses sur le temps fait passe.
The invisibility of his brushstrokes suggests extremely fine tools.
Perhaps even the use of...
Paint this angel with a touch of divine grace, Leonardo. Observe the light.
What exactly was that 3D model used to test?
We assembled it piece by piece, exactly as Da Vinci's sketches implied. We applied compression force, mimicking weight.
So what was so special about Leonardo's engineering principles for this bridge?
His design relies entirely on the... Although never built, does Leonardo's design offer insights into modern bridge engineering?
Absolutely. How did you plan it?
How does the detailed bridge connect to painting the Mona Lisa?
It's about systemic thinking, calculating force of the bridge.
Filtration.
Why would such a massive project only have 2 sketches and 4 measurements noted backward in a small notebook?
Ultimately, the Ottoman Sultan rejected this ambitious project.
What happened after that setback, and did it affect Leonardo's psyche as he...
Florence commissioned Leonardo and Michelangelo to paint 2 large murals. Leonardo. So why did Leonardo accept the commission to paint Lisa Gherardini, the wife of a cloth merchant?
The context was simple.
After the wall painting failure, Leonardo poured all his scientific energy into the Mona Lisa. What was his biggest experiment? We know the Mona Lisa began around 1503. How did Leonardo work with Lisa Gherardini as his
Leonardo chose to paint on a small poplar panel, not canvas. Why that specific material?
The wood panel offered
What confidence did the bridge's fundamental principles give Leonardo when he started the Mona Lisa?
that success.
Leonardo never had a fixed home. His career was a series of moves seeking patronage. After technical failures and fierce rivalry, was the Mona Lisa Leonardo's personal triumph, where he finally mastered art and science?
Many paintings attributed to Leonardo were actually workshop creations.
What tasks did he typically assign to his apprentices?
Leonardo.
Conservators like Cinzia Pasquali meticulously scrape away yellowed varnish.
Experts chemically analyze the varnish and underlying paint. What about the pigments and binders in Bacchus raise doubts? The goal isn't just cleaning, it's attribution. What specific techniques distinguish Da Vinci's brushwork from his... Leonardo often used a distinctive dark ground layer. Does Bacchus share this same type of foundation? At times. Leonardo meticulously studied gesture and anatomy.
Does Bacchus's posture and musculature reflect?
If Bacchus is a workshop piece,
how did the students attempt to imitate Da Vinci's sfumato?
Leonardo moved constantly, often leaving unfinished works to his students. Could Bacchus be a...
Now, were 30 ultra-thin, transparent paint layers applied to create the sfumato effect, that subtle haze on Mona Lisa's face.
Why was linseed or walnut oil superior to egg yolk tempera for Leonardo? The transparency of oil... Leonardo often started on a dark ground. Why? Beginning on a dark gown allowed the transparent oil layers. How did Leonardo make these paint layers blend so perfectly, leaving no trace of brushstrokes? Experts discuss oil helps create superior light and shadow. What did Leonardo use chiaroscuro to highlight in the Mona Lisa? If Bacchus lacks such perfectly thin paint layers, how much more refined is the Mona Lisa? Leonardo called this the science of painting. How did that vision shape him as an artist and scientist? All these secrets, 30 thin layers, oil's transparency, the dark ground.
Sfumato blurs the lines, but what anatomical knowledge brings the Mona Lisa's smile so vividly to life?
Leonardo's deep anatomical study allowed him to meticulously depict the precise contraction of facial muscles.
His notebooks reveal an almost obsessive study of facial anatomy, far beyond what other artists of his time explored.
The blurring effect of sfumato isn't just aesthetic. It mirrors.
And how does light play into this anatomical understanding?
How does it interact with those nuanced contours created by the muscles? His anatomical
precision track.
This precision, combined with sfumato, gives the illusion of movement, a smile that subtly changes as you...
So this convergence of artistic technique and scientific anatomical knowledge truly brought her to life on canvas.
Her mystery.
Her mystery isn't an accident. It's the masterful outcome of his science perfected.
This spurts you. How to paint the see-throughness of air. Leonardo developed atmospheric perspective. What scientific principles did he use?
The air itself acts as a filter. Tiny particles scatter light, making things...
Atmospheric perspective demands the use of blue and opaque white hues. What pigments did Leonardo blend to create that blue haze?
Our analysis shows a sophisticated blend of lapis lazuli, azurite, and lead white, applied in incredible...
So, atmospheric perspective is essentially sfumato applied to a landscape. What was the shared objective of these two techniques?
Both techniques aim to create a deliberate blur, a sense of unsureness. This forces the viewer to use their imagination to decode.
Leonardo called optics perspectiva. What did he write in his notebooks about light, color, and shadow?
He meticulously detailed his experiments with the camera obscura, understanding how light traveled.
That unique bonza blue and hazy effect, is it enough to confirm Leonardo as the author of Bacchus now? Experts are using chemical analysis to... Both Bacchus and Mona Lisa utilize atmospheric perspective. What similarities in technique have these restorations revealed? If Bacchus is from Leonardo's workshop, how did he teach his students to depict the human body and gesture? Van Houten studies analyze... Walter, you've said Leonardo created interactive painting. What does that mean for the viewer's experience?
Leonardo transformed the arts.
Deleuvin's findings revealed a historian's and scientist's verdict. Bacchus is now recognized as a masterpiece. The restoration of Bacchus proved that modern science helps us understand Da Vinci better. What is the next challenge for restorers?
Leonardo marketed himself as both an engineer and an artist, changing both fields profoundly. What legacy did he leave?
Cote has now created a digital version of the Mona Lisa, just as Leonardo saw her. The original colors reveal a stunning truth.
Digitally removing the yellowed varnish completely changes our perception of the Mona Lisa. Does this newfound vibrancy?
In Cote's hyper-detailed scan, did he find any trace of the missing eyebrows or eyelashes? Indeed, superfine brush mark. We now see the ultra-thin, colorless glaze layer Leonardo used to lock in that iconic sfumato effect.
Isaacson suggested that simply cleaning the Mona Lisa could topple the French government. Why does a single artwork carry such immense power?
How close is Cote's digital restoration to the truth? What can technology never truly replicate?
From engineer of bridges, anatomist of muscle, to optical scientist of sfumato, Leonardo da Vinci's ultimate legacy. Now, with museums able to project this digital restoration, will visitors still crowd to see the...
What were those three paintings? Art historians confirm they were the Mona Lisa, St. John the Baptist, and the Virgin the Indivisible. Why did Leonardo choose to live in France with King Francis I in his final years? What did Leonardo do for King Francis I? Borgo explains he was a first painter, engineer,
killing the three men. Leonardo lived at Château du Clos Lucé, near King Francis I. What did he draw in those final 3 years?
Leonardo da Vinci passed away in 1519. What legacy did he leave for Francis I? Historians discuss the root left. After his death, who inherited his notebooks, holding all his great scientific knowledge? Cote's digital restoration has helped to revive the Mona Lisa. What is the ultimate message Cote wants to convey? The scientific discoveries about the Mona Lisa have revealed Leonardo's timeless mind. He was not just a great painter, he was the first to apply. The Mona Lisa's smile remains the world's greatest riddle, a scientific puzzle that still captivates.
Through Pascal Cote's multispectral scans, we pierce 500 years of yellowed varnish to uncover her original vibrancy.
Infrared and X-ray reveal Leonardo's remarkable freedom, his 16 years of changes, unlike any contemporary artist.
The Mona Lisa stands as physical proof. When science and art unite, the result is breathtaking, lifelike perfection.
Anatomy provided the muscle knowledge to craft her most delicate expression, the ephemeral quality of her smile.
Optics, his perspectiva, manipulated our central and peripheral vision, creating the smoky sfumato that makes her smile appear and vanish.
Leonardo da Vinci, the first to truly apply science to capture movement, emotion, and life in art.